To this week's Head to Toe Healing Live. Dr. Kevin Reese created Head to Toe Healing. It helps people regain their health by providing their body with the right environment so it can heal itself, given the proper conditions. My name's Karen, and today we're going to be discussing TMJ, temporomandibular joint disorder, with our three panel experts. We have Coach Sean on the team, Coach Ryan, and Coach Gingy. Each one have a specialty that's within our membership that Dr. Reese has put together. Dr. Reese utilizes three macro methods. It's addressing the musculoskeletal system, nutrition, and also mindfulness. When those three elements are working together, that's when the body has what it needs to turn things around and help people get out of chronic pain and chronic conditions. So if you have questions during our segment today, please drop them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer questions that are submitted there. But I want to start with Coach Ryan. Would you please give us a little bit more background about TMJ, temporal mandibular joint? Well, mostly it's a disorder. When people get TMJ, it's the disorder part of it. What's your perspective on it, Ryan? Could you share with others?
Well, from the nutritional perspective, the TMJ problem is twofold. One is the two muscles of the jaw here in the face not lining up, or the bones are not lining up because the muscles are not lining up. So the muscles need a bunch of different nutrients. They need tons of different nutrients. We use all 90 essential nutrients. I grew up with a muscle problem, by the way, childhood arthritis and many other muscle symptoms, twitches and cramps. And jaw pain was one of those as well, and with teeth grinding in there. So the first one is just that your muscles very generally need lots of nutrients. It's physically impossible to get enough nutrients from the food supply. It's very easy to screw it up. And if you get sick for any reason, get a disease for any reason, it's going to take more nutrients to fix that than you could ever possibly get from the food supply, especially when it comes to the minerals needed for the muscles. So that's just general muscle dysfunction. It can happen from posture as well. I'm sure Sean will talk about it. But the other one is blood sugar, because TMJ, of course, the main symptom is pain in the jaw. Well, a lot of times, almost all the times, to be honest, the pain is most severe in the morning, or they wake up in the middle of the night with that screaming pain. And to me, that's mostly a blood sugar problem. So those same nutrients that you need for your muscles, most of them overlap with the nutrients that you need for your blood sugar. And if your blood sugar is rising and falling too rapidly, you don't have enough nutrients to process the sugar or to handle the insulin, then you get these major rises and falls. And it's in those falls that the body panics. When you get into low blood sugar, even for just a second, the body panics, it hits the emergency button, which causes the adrenals to flood in cortisol and adrenaline, which force the liver to release some of its stored sugar. So it raises your blood sugar very quickly. But this is why we see a lot of problems at night. Not just teeth grinding, but also night sweats, nightmares, night talking, night walking, night screaming, waking up to urinate, and even narcolepsy, even though that's not really a nighttime problem. All of these things are primarily a low blood sugar problem. And again, that doesn't mean your blood sugar is low all the time. It means it dips below the baseline, and especially in response to spikes, right? It spikes up and then it goes down because your body releases insulin, it takes it down. And if you don't have enough nutrients, it takes down too much, and you get this teeth grinding at night, which causes the jaw pain, which may or may not be associated directly with the muscle misalignment there, but it might be misdiagnosed as TMJ when it really was just teeth grinding or jaw clenching due to low blood sugar.
Thank you for that. Let's pass the baton over to Coach Sean. From a postural perspective, Coach Sean, how does that help, or how does that play a role in TMJ issues?
Yeah, thanks. So basically, TMJ, a lot of people will have a TMJ issue and then start addressing the jaw. And as Dr. Reese always says, and quite frequently as well, that very rarely is the site of the pain ever the source of the pain. And so, believe it or not, TMJ actually primarily derives from the pelvis. And the misalignment in the pelvis causes the spine to compensate, which affects the shoulders up to the neck and then eventually up to the jaw. And so this is just a domino effect, essentially, starting from the pelvis, and it just destroys the foundation. And when the body has no foundation to rely on, because the pelvis is essentially the middle foundation, even though the foundation is technically at the root or at the ground. In the human body, the entire body is balancing on the pelvis. All the pressure from the legs is going into the pelvis, and all the pressure from the upper body is going into the pelvis as well. And so any type of misalignment in the pelvis will affect the whole entire body. It's like the brain in a musculoskeletal sense. And so when there is a pelvic misalignment, that is what is going to be affecting the TMJ issue. Not to mention that anytime you have a misalignment, there are little strings that we like to call nerves that run throughout your muscles and bones. And anytime those become compressed, it causes a lot of issues as far as misfiring of the muscles or pain or numbness, anything along those lines are affected or caused by a nerve compression. And so that should be the biggest part, because if your body cannot communicate within itself, then it's just chaos essentially.
Thank you for that. Coach Gingy, what about from the mindfulness perspective? I would imagine when people get TMJ or TMD disorder, they have a lot of things going through their mind and it's hard to know how to navigate. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Absolutely. And it's funny, it's one of those things that people don't really connect the dots in the mindfulness perspective. Because if we were looking at it as the underlying cause, mindfulness being the underlying cause of TMJ or any other, jaw issues, muscle issues, you got to first understand that the brain kind of operates as a onboard computer, and it has all these different patterns that it uses. And then the nervous system, the spine going down through all the nerves and stuff, is really kind of like a circuit breaker that then sends signals out to the muscles and all this stuff. So the mind is basically in control of the entire body. Not a surprise. However, what happens when you start overthinking or you start indulging in too many negative thoughts or you're super stressed out? If you're to stop mid-argument with somebody and just be aware of what your body's going through, you'll notice a lot of tension and a lot of heat. And we see that with people with chronic inflammation and other stuff like that too. They're constantly in a state of tension. So that can very easily be sourced only in the jaw. A lot of people will be like, oh, I didn't realize my right shoulder sits higher than my left shoulder. We can hold tension in one area without really realizing that that's where we're holding it. And to a degree, that can develop into a very chronic condition. Like I said, the mind operates in patterns. So it will create this coping mechanism for whatever's going on, and it will continue to activate these muscles and it will leave them on. It's like if you get stuck in the fight or flight response, that can be a muscle that's just stuck on. So it's absolutely possible for you to be so overly pessimistic and concerned and in scarcity and fear and all of this stuff to cause TMJ. And in fact, you could be trying to alleviate TMJ and missing the mindfulness aspects of it and not being able to fully reverse the TMJ issues. Now, the other thing that happens post TMJ is a whole different conversation. Because what happens when you are not mindful and you end up waking up in the middle of the night? You get TMJ, like Ryan was saying, your jaw cramps and you're up in the middle of the night. You're not getting a full night's sleep. Your circadian rhythm's all whacked out. Well, that's going to affect your energy, your mental state, your mood for the whole next day. Imagine doing that on a chronic, everyday basis. You're going to be digging yourself into a rut of negative thinking, of chronic fatigue, of stress, of whatever else is going on that gets created from a lack of sleep. So there's a lot of things that can come pre-TMJ and a lot of things that can come post-TMJ. And if you're missing the mindfulness aspects of the whole thing, then you may be missing the actual underlying cause, because it could be any one of the three big pillars that we use: mindfulness, posture, and nutrition, or it could just be one of them. Or sorry, it could be one of any of those three, or it could be all three of them together. And that's why we have the whole program, because you want to be able to address all three to make sure that you're not just working on nutrition and you forget the posture part, or you forget the mindfulness part, or vice versa.
What's interesting about this topic is actually it hits home for me because that's the reason why, one of the reasons why I found Dr. Reese. I actually was a client of his 2.5, 3 years ago, and I was searching for solutions because my dentist, well, I was in one dentist chair and they told me I had one issue. And then I went to somebody else because they weren't giving me the right answers and I was still searching. I probably went to like 12 different dentists in 1 year. And it's not an exaggeration. Each time I got in a chair, they told me I had something different to address. And finally, it ended up being TMJ. And I didn't even know I had it. And whether or not I did or not, I'm not sure. In listening to what Ryan shared, the warning signals of waking up in the night and being, having that kind of anxiousness, those signals were there. And for people that are watching for the first time now, or you're not sure who to turn to, I mean, a lot of times people turn to chiropractors or dentists or a variety of different modalities. There are ways to turn it around naturally, as our team has described. When I got in the dental chair, they were telling me that I needed to first do an appliance on my lower jaw so that way it would relieve the pressure here and bring my jaw out so then my jaw could relax. But the thing about that is they were setting me up for the next procedure, which was going to be $14,000 over a 3+ year period to expand my upper jaw to correct my TMJ. But I just thought that was crazy at my age to do something so invasive. And so I kept searching and searching. And then the algorithms on social media aligned and I found Dr. Reese. And when he did a head to toe analysis for me, he unveiled so much more that was going on with my body. And a lot of those clues that Coach Ryan was talking about and Coach Sean with the pelvis being out of alignment, my whole body was out of alignment, nutritionally, mindfully, as well as posturally. So if you're having chronic issues with whether it be TMJ or other things, seek us out, get more information, read Dr. Reese's Head to Toe Healing book or his Medical Monopoly book to get a kind of a foundation, a starting point, because there are alternative answers and you just don't realize it. But I wanted to turn back to Ryan and just ask a couple more things. Ryan, you were talking about how people that may have TMJ issues or clenching in the night or things like that. What are some other indications that things are going wrong? And I guess indications that they may just need more nutritional support. Is there anything more you can elaborate on that?
Well, I'd be looking for other muscle symptoms or other blood sugar symptoms. So, especially with the low blood sugar, some of the biggest ones that most people don't even really think is a problem would be irritability when they're hungry or getting tired after meals. And like I said, any of those other things going on at night, like night sweats or night walking, night talking, night screaming, any of those would be a clue that low blood sugar is going on. Depression, anxiety, same thing. Weight problems, skin problems. Not every skin problem is caused by a blood sugar problem, but I'm going to start looking at what other symptoms are going on and how many of them could we put in a blood sugar category. Keep in mind, low thyroid function could also be causing teeth grinding, which is a little bit more complicated, but still, I'd be collecting all of the other smaller symptoms that they have and trying to determine, if we're going to support blood sugar or thyroid more specifically. But in any case, we're using all 90 essential nutrients regardless. So for what they need for their muscles, and again, we look for other muscle symptoms, spasms, cramps, twitches, shin splints, muscle weakness, muscle fatigue, anything like that. Um, we would give you all 90 essential nutrients anyways. That will cover the muscles. We rarely have to do anything extra about the muscles. The baseline supplement program that we use is very good for that. And it often reverses quite quickly. For me, my lifelong bone joint muscle problems all went away in less than a week. right? So that's pretty simple. But if they do have a blood sugar problem or a thyroid problem, then we'll just need to decide which one or both that we're going to support above the baseline.
Thank you for that. Oh, and then by the way, for those that are listening, I mentioned before I had that diagnosis from my dentist, and it was going to be an invasive process for me to correct it according to their terms. They didn't talk to me about nutrition. They didn't talk to me about posture. But once I had my head to toe analysis with Dr. Reese and he made it all he connected the dots for me and I got started in his program. At about day 70, my aches and pains went away. I started thriving, feeling great. And I never had to do that procedure that was going to cost $14,000. So I'm so thankful for Dr. Reese. And it's just amazing because if you're dealing with chronic issues and you've been searching for answers for a really long time, there are definitely alternatives to seek out. So back to TMJ. With TMJ, it's the joint disorder in the jaw. Somebody was just asking, what is TMJ? Basically, your jaw gets out of alignment. The muscles are aching. You might have migraine headaches. There's a lot of other symptoms. Your muscles in your upper back and shoulders could be inflamed and hurting a lot. A lot of times other symptoms are tinnitus, the buzzing in the ears, hissing or roaring in the ears. And I wanted to loop back over to Coach Sean because a lot of times when people have tinnitus for an extended period of time, it relates to something else. And so Coach Sean, would you address that from the posture perspective, please?
Um, how do you mean? Just to clarify.
With tinnitus seems like sometimes there might be other issues going on in the spine or neck area
Hmm.
that could be addressed.
Yeah, yeah. So big issue with tinnitus is usually the forward head because as you see, if you like pull up, I wish I had one. If you pull up like a chart where you saw all your nerves and where they go throughout your body, you can see a big old bottleneck happening in your neck. And so forward head is quite literally putting all of that pressure and compressing all of the nerves, compressing all of the lymphatic fluid, all of the blood vessels that you can think of are being compressed because the head is going forward, so it's narrowing the space for the nutrients or the oxygen or the lymph or even nerves to just flow or be present in there and work efficiently. And so one big one would be a compressed nerve that can lead to a lot of issues pertaining to tinnitus and even like a TIA. But furthermore, it's still going to be a whole full body issue because it's just the domino effect of what's happening somewhere else. Oftentimes, it's like this the result, you know. If you see the result, like you can't really help prevent or help rebuild anything if you just saw the result. You would have to see the full that's why and like NCIS and stuff like that, they see the result, but they still have to do the investigation to see what led up to it, what happened in the actual crime scene and such like that. And so you need that full story. You can't just address everything from the result, what where the problem is, because that's just not where it started and it's not where it's coming from. So, um, we have remedies to deal with this in our program, but it's always going to be the full body. And we always try to tell people to kind of just forget about the name. Okay, you got the name, you got that special name, you got TMJ, you got tinnitus, whatever name, just throw it out the window because it's not going to help you solve it. It would have helped you to get a medication for it, most likely, but it's not going to help you actually solve the issue. You don't get tinnitus fixed by doing tinnitus protocols. You have to do postural protocols and pull the body back into alignment. That's what actually fixes all the issues along with it because there's a lot going on. It's a lot more than that meets the eye.
Thank you for that. Coach Gingy, I wanted to pop over to you with tinnitus. I would imagine I've not experienced that myself. However, I know I talk to people every single week that have tinnitus and have had it for many years. And that constant ringing in the ears or echoing sound, I would imagine that would play play reels in their mind and make it a little bit difficult. How do you feel like, or how could they approach it from a mindfulness perspective to tolerate it, or until they can get some assistance with us with our head to toe healing? Any tips there?
Sure. In fact, I wanted to touch back on something you said a little bit earlier when you were sharing your story. You were like, I went to this doctor and they said this. I went to this dentist and they said this. They all had their own thing. That is such a common human thing to do. There was one time I had a candida issue years and years ago. And I went to a doctor and they were like, oh, it's probably an STD. They were an STD specialist. Went to another doctor. They're like, oh, it's probably warts. They were a wart specialist. Whatever their specialty is makes them more likely to identify the thing that they're specialized to find. It's something that everybody should be aware of, that the doctors do, that medical professionals do. Like if you were to sit down in front of me and Ryan would be able to say, "Oh, it's probably this nutritional thing over here," and I would say, "Well, it's probably this mindset over here." Everyone's got their own little perspective like that, and it's not just, doctors and medical professionals. It's everybody. Even you may be so um, problem oriented that no matter which direction you look, you keep finding more problems. There's an old analogy of the the drunk guy who's looking for his car keys. He threw them way out in the grass, and they're like, "Why are you looking for your car keys over here?" He said, "Well, it's underneath the street light. This is where the light is." Well, you're not going to find your stuff looking where the light is. You got to find it, where you last left it. So I wanted to touch on that because it's such a common human. Um, it's not really a fault or a problem, but it's a behavior. I'll call it a behavior. A very common human behavior where we have a specialty, we've got an expectation, we've got something we've trained our minds into, and that's the thing that we continue to find or bumping into. And I'm sure with regards to tinnitus, your question around that, I'm sure that that's going to cause a lot of overthinking. Like, oh, I can't just turn it off. It's loud. Like I used to play in bands and tour around the US and all kinds of different bands. And I wore earplugs every night, but a lot of the guys didn't. And being in a live venue every single night of the week, and you get home and your ears will just be ringing and ringing and ringing. You can get ringing in the ears by damaging your eardrums too. And those people have a chronic ringing in the ears now that may never go away unless they can get their eardrums fixed. And it can be a bit maddening from what I've been told. Mine kind of comes and goes. I think I can get it sometimes, but it's usually like if I've been around had the TV too loud, or I'm wearing my headphones while I'm working or something, or working out, or I got the windows down while I'm driving. So the ringing in the ears can be pretty much anything, but you want to, here's what I would recommend for some people that are dealing with ringing in the ears, regardless of where it came from. Uh, Try some box breathing, try some relaxation techniques, try to calm the mind down, or even listen to the ringing as like music or an orchestra. Let it blend in with your environment and just kind of induce a level of inner peace with it. Because if you can reduce the stress that comes along with it, if you can create this level of inner peace, like Dr. Reese talks about all the time, it will have your muscles relax. It'll have the ring. And even if the ringing is still there a little bit, you'll be less bothered by it. And it can be something that can change your entire experience of the ringing. I know it kind of sounds wooey wooey, but in all reality, if you apply something like that, it could change your mental, emotional state throughout the day. Because like we were talking about in the mindfulness class this morning, it's not about, you know, changing the stuff out there or changing the thing you're experiencing. It's about changing your relationship with the thing so that it doesn't trigger you out of peace, so that it doesn't cause you to be, going backwards with your healing process.
Thank you for that. You hit the head on the nail, or the nail on the head for sure, when you were talking about going to different specialists. If you go to a surgeon, they're going to recommend surgery. If you go to a particular specialist, they're absolutely going to recommend what they're a specialist in. So thank you for pulling that in, Gingy. That's very helpful.
It's funny,
One,
Karen, that you say that, because the analogy that popped in my head as you were talking was everything looks like a nail to the man with a hammer in his hand.
that's true. It's so true. Absolutely. I wanted to venture over to our comments. We've had a few people asking some questions and we want to answer those for them. Michelle's asking, any advice on how to control abdominal migraines? I've been getting them for 2 years now and it's absolute help. Coach Ryan, could you address that, please? I've never heard of abdominal migraines. Have you?
Migraines in general are almost always caused by a food problem, food sensitivity, or a food allergy. So first thing we would do is get you off the poor four foods because those are the most obvious. But if it persists, then we're going to need to do an elimination diet where you take everything out and reintroduce things one at a time to see if any of them spark a migraine. And it could be any food, right? I mean, it could be chocolate, it could be strawberry, it could be banana, it could be chicken. You don't know. Some are more likely than others, right? Corn, soy, dairy, gluten. These are going to be the most common ones, but just know that it can be other things. It can be anything. So if you've already gone gluten-free or dairy-free, just know that you're on the right path. It is almost certainly a food. There's other possibilities, I'm sure, but foods and food additives, food ingredients, so getting off of processed foods, which is one of the poor four, right? One of the poor four is fake foods. Getting off of that almost always gets rid of any type of migraine or cluster headaches or anything like that. There are other possibilities. We still need a whole bunch of nutrients. Your posture can be off, definitely. Your mindset could be off. I'm sure all three of these things can combine to cause various types of headaches. But in general, you use the word migraine and even headaches in general. I always think of food first, of food causing it.
Ryan, I know we touch on this weekly, but let's do it one more time. With the poor four foods, would you outline them again in case there's somebody new that's listening today?
It's gluten, oil, fried, and fake. And with that, a lot of problems are going to go away. It's a pretty basic list there. And again, it might not just be the gluten grains. You could have a problem with other grains. I already mentioned corn and stuff. So it might be a gluten-free grain and still cause you problems, but you should start with the big, most obvious ones, the gluten, oil, fried, and fake. Again, that'll make a tremendous difference for most people, just that alone. And we see those comments all the time as well, that people just got off the poor four and are feeling better in various ways.
That is so true. Actually, I just had a conversation with somebody a couple of days ago, and she's been reading Dr. Reese's books. She got Medical Monopoly first, and then she got Head to Toe Healing, which are great places to start. And she started implementing the bonuses that were in the green book, the Head to Toe Healing book, and eliminating those poor four foods. And it's made a huge difference for her. A lot of her aches and pains have already started going away, and now she's ready to get started with us with next steps. Next question is from Pauline, and I'm going to direct this over to Ryan and to LaShawn. Could you reverse arthritis in your knees? Is that possible to do? Coach Sean, I'm going to start with you from the posture side of things. If you could address that, please.
Yeah. One big thing about arthritis or just the knees and cartilage in general is that it's a huge misunderstanding that most mainstream doctors go by the notion that cartilage cannot regrow. And I always say, if your hair, if your nails, if your bones, if most of your organs can regenerate, your skin even can regenerate, why is your cartilage suddenly left out of the equation? And it's not that your knees are like brake pads and the brake pads wear out. And so eventually when your knee pads wear out, your cartilage wears out, you got to get a surgery and have it redone. And no, it's not that. It's the only reason why that is happening is because of strictly a misalignment. That means that you want to get a little postural, that there's like a disc, it's like a jelly donut looking disc that goes in between the knees. It's in most joints. And so anytime that has a misalignment to where the bones are on or unevenly on that joint, it starts to squeeze it outwards. And when it starts to squeeze it outwards and constantly roll on that edge of the little jelly donut, it starts to wear faster than the other side. And so you have this imbalance to where the bones are bone on bone, and there's not enough space to get the nutrients there to start rebuilding that cartilage. Blood can't get there, oxygen can't get there. And again, nerves start to get affected or impacted. And so it's completely possible, but you have to focus on the alignment. The doctors will always focus on the problem, the knee, and they'll say, okay, the knee needs to be replaced when it's actually not the knee that needs to be replaced. It's not even a knee issue. I would say 90% of the time, it's not even a knee issue. It's not where the pain is. It's never that. It's always going to be somewhere else. And you have to not get tunnel vision to where the pain is. I know it's hard to focus on that, but it's completely just the wrong approach. And essentially, it's always going to be the same thing. You'll never grow the cartilage back unless you correct the issue, that you correct the alignment of the entire body. And so, to answer your question, yes, it's completely possible, but it's not possible through just paying attention to, oh, this is a knee problem. We need to have all the knee protocols possible. We need to get all this wraps and cream on the knee. No, it's none of that.
Thank you for that. And it's amazing. It takes people a little bit of time to connect the dots that this is a whole body issue. It's nutrition, it's posture, it's the mind, all of it, it's interconnected. And when you get all three of those elements working together, that's when the magic happens. So I want to pass the baton over to Coach Ryan. Ryan, you know a lot about arthritis. It was something that happened to you when you were a child, and it's something that you have been able to get out of. Could you address that too? Can somebody reverse knee arthritis? And we have somebody else in the comments, Joanne, she's saying she has a lot of inflammation. It's inflammation of her muscles and muscle weakness. So could you address that, please?
Yeah, so the first person who asked if we can reverse arthritis, I would say no, but you can. It is completely reversible. There's two components. There's the inflammation, right? Itis means inflammation, so inflammation in the joints is what arthritis means. And there's nutrient deficiencies. Again, your bones, your joints, your muscles, all of that needs nutrients. If you have arthritis, you most likely have those deficiencies. The inflammation could just be caused from food, right? Similar to the migraines. It's very common, in fact. If she's saying she has inflammation in her muscles, it's almost certainly coming from food. But you do need the raw materials to rebuild, right? Rebuild bones, joints, muscles. And so we do both. We get you off the bad foods. We get you on the 90 essential nutrients. And you do the posture and the mindfulness and even potentially more that we can help you sort out. And yes, it is reversible. And there's no exceptions to that. It's always reversible. Some cases are harder than others. Sometimes we have to, go outside of the box to figure out what's going on. But in general, it's one of the most straightforward problems. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Sharon's asking a question. It's a little bit lengthy. She says, my OBGYN doesn't seem to be concerned. I've done 2 ablations, or how they check for cancer in the cervix area, but I've been spotting ever since the first one, which was 2.5 years ago. I'm 55, in menopause for the last 5 years. I was happy not to get a period anymore, but I spot every single day for 2.5 years now. This doesn't seem normal. I keep thinking there's cancer somewhere. Should I be concerned? Plus, I have lining that's shedding. I forgot to mention also, I just purchased the red and green book and the cookbook. So should she be concerned at all? I'm going to direct this over at Coach Ryan. If she's having the ablations to check that for the cervical area for cancer, is that something she should be worried about? It's mainly the spotting that continues to happen after 2.5 years.
Yeah, spotting in general, if it's happening more than, just once in a blue moon or anything, It's always a concern. It's always a concern. And in this case, I don't think we know if it's actual, menstrual spotting or if it's just due to the ablation. And ablation means destroying tissue. So they go in and they destroy tissue. So it may be, I'm just guessing because I don't know what else is going on with her. I would ask all of her symptoms basically and see if we can put together a picture. But if it happened after the procedure, then it's probably caused by the procedure. And it may just be that it never fully healed, which you need more nutrients to heal than to maintain, once again, and some specific nutrients we could use pretty high doses of in cases where things are not healing properly. Kind of like an ulcer, right? An ulcer is a wound that will not heal. So perhaps it could be something like that. But, we've had many cases where people were spotting abnormally, basically just kind of constantly had a period, even for years. And that's obviously a hormonal problem, which is reversible. We would cover all the bases once again, 90 essential nutrients, get them off the bad foods, do extra hormonal support if necessary, although it's usually not necessary. In this case, again, if it is sort of an ulcer type thing, I would be doing all 90 essential nutrients off the bad foods, obviously. And I would boost at least two nutrients, which I can give away here. The first one would be vitamin A, and I mean real vitamin A in liver be the best source of vitamin A. So if she's not eating liver currently, I would recommend doing that 1 to 3 times a week because it doesn't just have the extra vitamin A, it has a lot of extra nutrients, especially a lot of minerals in it. It's not going to, give everybody everything they need and they don't need to supplement, but it's a very good source of a high dose of a lot of key nutrients for healing, especially vitamin A. And the other one is zinc. And I don't like to blindly recommend zinc. I would caution you not to go above 150 milligrams and not for longer than about a month on that dose. I personally like to usually use 150 milligrams for a month if they're over 150 pounds or around there. If they weigh less than that, then I would only do 100 milligrams. I used to do a month on 150, month on 100, month on 50, and usually that'll fix some kind of an ulcer combined with the vitamin A. Both of those are very, very important for wounds that won't heal.
Thank you for that. Another comment that we've had in this last week. Actually, I was talking to somebody the other day. She's a young mom and she has a lot of fear and anxiety. I want to direct this one over to Coach Gingy. She's really, really concerned about getting cancer. She's had some issues with her esophagus and being able to swallow. It's been very difficult for her, and her mind is just going crazy. It's just looking at all the different options of what might happen, whether it be cancer or whether she may pass away. She has a small child. She's just really concerned. Is there any sort of tips that you can provide, Gingy, to help somebody get through that as far as what their mind's doing?
Absolutely. The first thing is to bring a level of understanding to what's going on. You want to understand that your subconscious mind is a mechanism built into your psyche to protect you. This is meant to identify patterns. It's meant to identify dangers. It's the reason why we have two different nervous systems. Well, gears or modes of or functions of the nervous system. We can go into fight or flight, which is where we perceive our external reality as dangerous or concerning, or there's something to mitigate. And it will activate, and then our thoughts will be there, emotions will be there, our hormones will be there. But then you want to be able to switch off and go back to peace. And if you're constantly thinking about the external world as dangerous, what happens if I get cancer? What happens if this happens? It's your imagination running away with itself. And if you see that that's what it is, you see that it's your subconscious mind trying to identify different dangers so that you can be aware of them and avoid them, then you just see that this is a survival tactic by your mind. And you could be grateful for it if you choose to be. Because ultimately, it may have saved your life a million times in the past, and it may very well save your life right now. So you can bring a level of gratitude, and guess what? Gratitude activates the other side of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest or the rest and restore nervous system. And by bringing gratitude to that whole process, you can see it as just your imagination. None of that stuff has happened yet. None of that stuff may ever happen. In fact, think back on your life. How many times did your plans go according to plan? Very rarely, if ever, do plans go according to plan. So if you're imagining a potential future, it more than likely will not work out the way that you think it will. You'll be surprised in some kind of way it will go in a different direction. And again, it's the future. You have to imagine it in order to experience it in this moment. So, a couple of key practices I would recommend, besides just, acknowledging and bringing gratitude to what's going on in front of you, is pull part of your awareness into your body. Feel some of what the five senses are experiencing right now. Feel your feet on the ground, feel your back in the chair, feel the temperature of the air around you, something. That'll pull part of your awareness. They call it spotlight awareness because you can only focus on a certain amount of things at one given time. You can't look left and right at the same time, right? So if you start pulling your vision back, if you start pulling your awareness into your body, you'll start to pull a lot of the mental activity out of your mind. So you may only experience like 50% of what's going on there. Like I've had people I've worked with that have been going through a panic attack. And I'm like, what's your big toe feeling right now? Boom, it decreases by like 50% like that. It's literally that quick. It's not going to reverse the problem, but it will give you a little extra headroom or breathing room there. Secondly, you want to sit with actually, if you get Dr. Reese's book, The Cheat Code, that's not one of his most popular books, but I really like it because he talks about different practices in that book, like the gratitude practice, the thank you meditation. That thank you meditation is amazing because what it does is it calms the subconscious mind, the inner child, back down to where you can establish a level of peace inside you where the mind goes down, the emotion goes down, everything just kind of decompresses and allows you to be grateful and present and at peace, really is the whole point of what I do with most of the people in the program. So stuff like the gratitude or the thank you meditation, stuff like feeling what your five senses are going through, seeing what your sensory experience is, understanding what's going on and being grateful for it, those types of things, or even taking a hot bath. That'll calm the nervous system because it's like you're in the womb again. And it's like the last time we were truly safe was in the womb. And there's a lot of little things like that. But the point is, you want to decompress, you want to relax, you want to come back to a level of peace because it's the it's the fear about what could happen in your imagination that's causing your imagination to get ramped up and run away with you. So what you want to do is you want to pull back on the imagination. You want to realize that it's just the potential future, could go the other direction too. Like, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't? Well, what if I get cancer? But what if you heal? Like, there's always the flip side to the coin, and you can just kind of, okay, I get that that's one possibility. Okay, let me just relax. Oh, I'm grateful for you trying to protect me. I get that this is a protective mechanism in my subconscious. Okay, and you can really just be with it and let it go back to peace. And that's when the mind will get quiet and the emotions will get quiet and you can, kind of breathe again, especially if you're feeling your body.
Thank you for that. I want to pop over to Ryan. Ryan, this particular woman that's fearful, has anxiety, afraid of maybe getting cancer, a lot of it stemmed from her having a difficult time swallowing. And her esophagus, anytime she drinks water, has food, it's painful for her. Do you have any tips or thoughts on what might be contributing to that or what might help her?
Well, it could be a Barrett's esophagus situation where they're having stomach acid splash up into the esophagus and it's slowly wearing it away or quickly wearing it away, which is fixable once again as well. Almost everything is fixable, guys. So, with her situation, I'm sure there's many more symptoms, and I'm sure that doing one thing is probably not going to fix any of them. This is why we do head to toe healing, where we combine multiple strategies all at the same time, because that's what ratchets up the results. We're going to get a lot better results doing 3 different healing modalities at the same time than we would from doing any one of them separately.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And Coach Sean, did you have any insights on that?
Yeah, I actually wanted to piggyback off of what Coach Gingy was saying and like just bringing your awareness into your body, but also try to fill out what areas of tension, like what are your tails? What do you tend to do when you get anxious? Do you tend to tighten up your shoulders, round your back? Most people, I've realized that most people that deal with anxiety hold something that's not there. So their body will kind of pantomime or go into the same position that you do when you're holding something in front of you, but nothing is there. So they'll round their shoulders like they're picking something up in front of them. Their back starts to round, their head starts to come forward to stabilize it. But what are they holding on to? It's nothing. But their body starts to get into that motion. And oftentimes, anytime you get into a position of anxiety where your shoulders are tense or you're just tensed up, your brain will believe it. And in that position, not only are you collapsing on top of your diaphragm, the pump for your lungs. So in order to breathe, imagine you're trying to breathe in this room, but out of nowhere, all of a sudden, you have to do twice the work to breathe, only to receive the same amount of breath, each breath. And so you're doing double the work, but still receiving the same amount of oxygen. You're cutting off your oxygen flow when you have these rounded back and when you start to get anxious and round your shoulders and forward head, not to mention a lot of the issues that people have wherever the disease is or the dysfunction is happening. I implore you to look into your posture and see how your posture is aligned in that area. If you're having any type of hormonal conditions, look at the alignment of your pelvis. If you're having any type of gut issues, look at the alignment of your thoracic back or your lumbar back, your lower or an upper back. And if you're having any type of Barrett esophagus, look at your neck. Is your head coming forward? Is that blocking the blood flow and the lymphatic flow and pressing nerves? These things are going to always follow. This is why we say everything is a full body condition at the end of the day. It just seems like it's one problem, but it has multiple levels to it. And so you always want to address the three pegs in every single situation. And I say three pegs, I mean the three healing modalities that Dr. Reese talks about and that we're here for: the posture, the mindfulness, and the nutrition, because they all have a sense and a part in every condition you can think of, and 10 more that you can't. So, yeah, I think it absolutely has a part, posture, in anxiety. And I in my class all the time, we'll have people get on the ground, lay down on their back, and get into this position where they're just opened up for the first time. And the whole day, because relatively speaking, most people are just round up, they're just in this box. And so whether they're typing on a computer, look how you're eating, I mean, what you're driving, I'm in the same position. And people are in the same position every single day, relaxing, watching TV. They're in the same position. They're not expanding, they're not reaching. Like I always tell people, try to remember the last time you had to pull yourself up on something, the last time you reached behind you to grab something, the last time you had to get up on your tippy toes and reach and grab something on top of the counter. I mean, when the last time you bent over, when was the last time you carried something? Think about these things, and your body is supposed to do multiple of these functions every single day. That's how we evolve, and that's something that's we're lacking. And so I say all that to say that most of the time, just try to open up the body. Because when you get anxious, you start to do things that for you I mean, it could be like a coping thing, but it's actually causing or exacerbating the anxiety symptoms. Because if you're curling up, that's what you want to do, typically with anxiety in general. You just want to become smaller. It's a lot. It feels like a heavy weight. And when you get into that position, it's going to exacerbate the same symptoms. So whatever your body does, your brain will believe it.
Thank you for that. That is so helpful. And what people don't realize is motion is lotion for the body. And that's one thing posture alignment therapy within our membership does for you. It keeps you mobile. It keeps you fluid. It helps your body communicate throughout from head to toe. So if you're curious about our modalities with head to toe healing, go to drkevinreese.com. That's drkevinreese.com. Get more information there. There's a ton of testimonials. There's a start page. There's a ton of educational materials. Or start with the books. Read Head to Toe Healing and Medical Monopoly. Those are the best places to start. There's one other question I wanted to address before we wrap up shortly here. Star's asking, she says, I have anxiety and panic attacks. It's at its peak to a point where I don't trust anyone. I'm afraid I might need therapy. Any help? Coach Gingy, can you address this for her, please?
And I would have to know a lot more about what is coming up for you and what's going on and what your subconscious is trying to communicate to you through the fear, through the anxiety. Um, as far as the blanket term, a lot of what I said on the last round would apply, basically all of it, because it's your imagination about the future. It's your imagination about the past. It's your imagination with the fear, and it's your imagination. All that stuff is you imagining experiences that then you're physiologically reacting to. Like your imagination can literally cause your body to release cortisol and adrenaline and turn on and off glands and turn on and off your digestive system. And so you're going to feel the effects of whatever you imagine. Even if it's just a short-term little blip or if it's a chronic, long-term, long-lasting thing. So I would do my best if I was you to, like, if I was in your situation, I would try to just calm down in those situations. I would notice my mind starting to imagine things and I would say, yeah, but it hasn't happened yet. Let's just stay focused on what's here and now. Or I would notice myself starting to fear things and saying, well, the fear isn't going to help me achieve my goals. The fear isn't going to bring me peace. And I would constantly be redirecting because the way the mind works, like I was saying earlier, is in patterns. And so if you create a pattern of overthinking or create a pattern of anxiety or create a pattern of pessimistic thinking or optimistic thinking, you're going to create a pattern that then you don't have to do anything with. It will run all by itself. You no longer have to continue to do it. It's just like how many of you actually stop and plan how you're going to shower today? Or do you just jump in and let the automatic shower you? How do you wash your hands? Do you get your hands wet for, like, it's just there's things in our daily routine that have been so ingrained, they're just automatics. That tells you that you've programmed your subconscious mind to behave automatically like this. It's there so that our conscious mind doesn't have to constantly be thinking about every little thing it does. It can take a break and just let the automatics run. And it's how, like, guys like Michael Jordan got to a level of excellence is because they don't think about shooting a basketball or playing defense. They just express it subconsciously. So what you want to do is recognize that this is something that, sorry, I think maybe I just glitched here. What you want to do is you want to recognize that this is something that is going to happen no matter what. And you want to retrain your subconscious mind to be healthier. So you want to start creating habits of, retraining to peace or retraining to being focused on the here and now, the present moment, retraining it to whatever it is that you feel will be more beneficial than obsessing about a potential future that may not happen, or thinking about something in the past, or being worried about something, or expanding your focus elsewhere. Once you create those types of beneficial habits, the work isn't getting the ball rolling, and then once it's rolling, it just takes a little tap to keep it up. So I mean, without knowing more about the specific situation, like if you join the membership, I'll be able to sit down with you and say, okay, tell me what's going on. And I can work you through whatever's coming up for you. But as a general thing like this, I can just kind of give a blanket statement. Well, try to create some inner peace for yourself. Focus on the moment, try not to overthink, recognize that it's just your imagination. You're imagining things. And if you weren't imagining things, you'd have a different experience.
Thank you for that, Gingy. One other thing, Star, that you could do is Dr. Reese's book, The Cheat Code. Gingy was talking about that earlier today, and I don't know if you came into the live a little bit later, but that might be a book that could provide you some tangible solutions that you could act upon right away. We need
That's
to
actually probably the best thing to do because he'll walk you through the process of deprogramming and reprogramming in that book. And it's way cheaper than a membership or a session with a guy like me. That's probably the best place to start for yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. One last question. I want to direct this at Coach Ryan. I had a call with somebody earlier this week, and they're suffering from coronary calcium buildup. It's been increasing quite a bit over the last several years. And is that something head to toe healing can help reverse?
Well, it's definitely something nutrition can help reverse. Lots of nutrients can help get rid of the plaque, but you also have to put in the nutrients that were missing to cause the plaque formation in the first place. And that's mainly minerals there. So I would expect it to go away over the course of many months. And the head to toe healing membership, you come in for a year. So we have the time to do that. And it's within that whole year that I would expect it to go down. And you can go and get a scan at the end of the year and check and make sure. If someone wanted to go even faster and harder, although it does cost more, IV chelation is also an option to get rid of the calcium plaques there. But yeah, you've got to fill in the deficiencies because the calcium plaque is there for a reason. The body's pulling it out of the bones and putting excess in the blood, largely because of calcium deficiency itself. Also, some of its cofactors like magnesium and vitamin K2. And there's a lot of people who are taking just those individual nutrients, and it's really not going to do the whole job. You need all 90 essential nutrients. You need to make sure you're off of the bad foods, the inflammatory foods. And like I said, there are options outside of our membership, such as IV chelation, that could really speed up the process as well.
Thank you for that. And one last question. There's so many questions every week. Serafina is asking, any help for bronchitis? Coach Ryan, could you address that, please?
Well, chronic bronchitis is almost always caused by gluten intolerance. And as I was saying earlier, with other food allergies, it could be any food that's really bothering them. But yeah, in general, chronic bronchitis, chronic ear infections, chronic UTIs, almost all of that is caused by, just regular consumption of the bad foods, especially gluten. But like I said, it could be other ones. I've seen chronic bronchitis go away many, many times. Just getting off the bad foods, using the 90 essential nutrients with emphasis on the good fats, because it's essentially a fatty nutrient deficiency.
Thank you for that. So we're going to just wrap up here. If you are interested in head to toe healing, please go to drkevinreese.com. That's drkevinreese.com. There's a lot of educational materials on there. There's testimonials from our members, so you can get a better idea. If head to toe healing is for you, there's also a start page. But additionally, check out Head to Toe Healing, the book, and the sequel to it, Medical Monopoly. Both of these are fantastic to start with. So if you're looking for answers to your chronic issues, pains that you have, and want to reverse them in a more natural way and get your body in a position where it can heal itself, this is the start. And when you go to our website, we are open to chatting with you. Our coaches are there to set up, well, if you want to set up a free consultation with us, there's a position where you hit the start button there and you can schedule a call and we can talk to you about your specific conditions and what you're trying to achieve and see how we might be able to best support you in that journey. Have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you next week. Same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday.